So loving is difficult as it is. There's so many rules and so many conditions, but have you ever thought about love behind bars and how to conquer that? Well, that's what we're talking about today on Disability Life TV.
Disability Life TV is sponsored by Conqueror Dental Associates.
Welcome everyone, my name is Yvette Pegues and I am your host today for Disability Life TV. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have with me today the beautiful Jameca McGhee. Is that pronounced correctly?
Right, correct.
So we met at the state capitol.
Right.
Now, it was an advocacy day, something that I do pretty often, and I saw this stunning woman standing for the rights of people in a conditioned area that I'm very familiar with, because I also have an intellectual disability as a result of my brain and spinal cord injury. And so developmentally, when I met her, I knew that I had to reconnect, and we finally reconnected. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's really an honor to be here because you're so inspiring to me. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. I didn't pay her to say that, I promise. So let's talk about baby Jamika.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about where you were born, kind of how your childhood was. Let's talk about that. Let's tell our guests a little bit about who you are.
Okay. Sure. So I'm from Atlanta, born and raised.
So you're a real peach.
I'm a real peach. I'm a real peach.
Okay. All right.
So I was such a creative child. Like my mom would buy me art sets when I was little. Like instead of Barbie dolls and stuff, I wanted to paint and draw. Like, I was one of those kids who, like, drew on the walls with crayons. Like, she was like, let me get you an art set so you can stop drawing on the walls and stuff. But, yeah, super creative. Like, she always talks about, like, you would dress so crazy. And she was like, one time, I just let you keep on this little crazy outfit because I was like, you know what? She wants to wear it and embarrass herself.
Right.
I'm going to let her wear it. And she was like, and you were so happy. So I've always had this, like, crazy style. So that's kind of when I first knew that I wanted to get into fashion. Ooh. So I've been like a little fashionista since I was like a little bitty something.
So how old were you at the time in which your mom allowed you to dress the way you identified yourself as?
I was 4. Wow. I wasn't even in school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did that change at all?
No.
Really?
No, you know what? Like, when I got into elementary school, my mom we would shop at the thrift store a lot. I mean, we didn't have a lot of money. My mom's a nurse. Okay. But she was still a single mother. Right. So, yeah, we would shop at the thrift store, and she would let me pick out my own clothes. One time, I got some lime green bell-bottoms. Okay. I was like, why does the tag look so weird? They were vintage. They were like from the 70s. I was wearing them in 5th grade. Wow. So yeah, like I've always been into fashion, like just an out there fashion. You know what I mean? Not like the typical like stuff. Even though I love like designers and things like that. Of course. But I've always had like this crazy style, so I've been a little fashionista.
I am grateful to your mom for allowing you to self-identify at such an early age. Yeah. Because, you know, she seemed to have nurtured your gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. There was this one book that she read. I remember it was about, like, personalities. And it was, like, a circle, a triangle, a square, and a squiggle. And she was like, pick which one you are. And I was like, I'm the squiggle. Like, whatever was different, that's what I wanted to be. And she said that she really learned it, though, like, through me. Like, oh, wow. Yeah, like, because my mom is, she's kind of creative herself, but she's more like classic and feminine, and she was like, where'd this child come from?
Exactly. Yeah, my mother said a lot of the same things because around your age, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, I get so much more pleasure out of, you know, tuning up a Cadillac and dropping the oil pan and spark plugs, and I'd pull my shirt behind my neck and play football with my brother until I couldn't. Right. And my mom was like, no, the shirt thing has to stop. You're growing. Right. And so, yeah, I get it. She didn't know where I came from either.
Do you have brothers then?
One older brother.
Oh, okay. That's funny. So do I.
Be like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that worked out great. Well, you know, I'm sure that led into a lot that you're doing now because you're doing so much. I am. I just want to say Cleopatra and then leave it at that because this beautiful woman, this Nubian princess, has so much going on in her life. Can you tell us a little bit about who that little girl grew up to be?
Yeah, so I'm a fashion designer. I went to fashion school, so I left Atlanta when I was 18, and I went to California.
Wow.
I went to fashion school, and I came back to Atlanta, and I knew that I loved fashion, but I also love makeup and skincare.
I can tell.
So I went to esthetician school as well. So I learned skincare and makeup. So now I'm working on starting a clothing line and also makeup line / skincare line. So I'm trying to do it all.
They're all related.
They are related. It really is about, I just love making people feel beautiful. And that's kind of like just turned into my passion. It's just kind of finding like the heart in it, not necessarily just like expressing yourself, but really like getting that deep essence of like making someone feel really beautiful about themselves.
So you said essence, and that's what I was feeling from you, because it's one thing to make someone feel and look beautiful through makeup, but then skincare is more kind of your inner coming out, and your light makes me feel beautiful before you even put makeup on.
Thank you.
So we're going to have to talk about that, because I totally need makeup. And
I'll give you all the tips. I'll give you all the tips.
Need it.
I have sons.
Perfect. That's important to me. Now, you talk about your mom quite a bit, but before we get into your mom, tell me a little bit about yoga. Okay, so yoga,
esthetician,
that makeup and clothes. So basically, you're a one-stop shop. I could show up with my naked face, and body, and you would just
I can get you together. I can get you all the way right.
So how about the hair part?
So, so I did hair in high school, and I retired when I was 18. I was like, no more hair. So I did it, and I started braiding hair when I was like 8 or 9, and then by the time I got to middle school, I was doing like micro braids and stuff like that, and I was just doing it for like the girls in my school. By the time I got to high school, people were calling me like, I saw this lady at church and I want my hair done. Like, I was like having a little business. Like, it was good. It was good business. Like, on the weekends, I was booked. Really? I didn't have weekends. I was doing hair. So I saved up my money, and that's kind of how I also afforded to go to fashion school. So that summer before I left for California, I worked at a salon.
Got it.
And I saved up my money. So I don't really do hair anymore. Really? I mean, my hair is like, I'm always doing something crazy with my hair.
I know. The last time I saw you I
had a big
on one
blue
side.
hair. It was blue.
Oh my God. So you made a conscious hair choice.
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal hair choice?
Sure. So right now, I do this thing, I don't know why, like whenever I feel like I'm having like a life change, I shave my head. So so right now I've just been feeling like I want to put more energy into really doing what I love to do, which is fashion, because I have been sort of stagnant in it a little bit. Like I haven't been going like full throttle like I know I should.
Right.
And I've just been putting other things before what I know I'm really passionate about and what I feel like, the gifts God really gave me.
Right.
I've been putting them to the side. So now I feel like it's time to get focused.
Right.
I'm ready to do it. And my hair kind of reflects that.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. And I love that you made such a bold choice.
Thank you.
And that you have a great shaped head.
Thank you. That's what people always say. They're like, do I have the head for it?
Yeah, I would totally not have the head to shave it. Because there are times where I wish I could just shave my head. But no.
Oh, it's so liberating, though.
I could imagine.
But I was worried, too. I was like, is it going to look weird? This is actually the second time I've done it, though. So, but I was going to have to do it anyway because I had like half of it shaved.
That's true.
And I wanted it to grow back evenly. And I could have done a thing where I grew it out, but I was like, let me just shave. I've done it before, so it wasn't as risky, but I love it.
You have a beautiful face.
Thank you.
And it's almost enhanced. I don't think you could do anything wrong with your hair.
Thank you.
But see, you said something about doing hair and doing makeup. I think you do more than just do these things. You are not just practiced experience and passion, but you're educated in the areas of your gifts.
Yeah, thank you.
Which I'm really impressed with, right? Because so many people say, well, I do hair or I can do your makeup, but you took it to the next level.
Right.
So watch out for this young lady. She doesn't just do this stuff. She's gone to school. She's learned it. And the conditions under which she did that is, I'm sure, what you're waiting for. But I just wanted you to get to know this beautiful young lady. But, before we go to the break, you speak so highly about your mom. You say such amazing things about her. Is she still in your life?
She is.
She's still as active and supportive in your life?
So, she just had a birthday, too. So.
Did she?
Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I know you have the love of your life, your high school sweetheart.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about him.
So his name is Mustafa.
I love that name.
Yeah. He's so supportive of me. People are always like, what does he think about, like, your crazy style? You shaved your head. Like, he is so open-minded. Like, he just embraces it.
Wow.
So I'm really happy to have someone so supportive in my life.
As you should be.
Yeah.
As you should be.
Thank
the name alone, Mustafa.
Right.
Is like,
right. And that is him, too. Yeah.
So that's why I believe in names. I believe that names have so much value.
Right.
I love that you are encircled with people in your life who love and support you.
Yeah.
And obviously 10 years, high school sweetheart.
Right.
He's seen you go through a lot
he
of
really
hair
has.
and makeup and
right.
clothing changes.
Exactly.
And he's still here.
He's there.
actually in the studio.
right.
Here, literally. He's
right.
here. So I love that about you. But you know,
you.
one of the reasons why I asked you to be on the show, besides loving everything about you, was why you were at the Georgia State Capitol on the day that I met you.
Right.
We're going to do just a teaser, and we'll talk more about it after the break, but tell me a little bit about why you were there at the courthouse when I met you.
Yeah, so my father was incarcerated since I was 2 years old, and he was intellectually disabled. So I was speaking about my experience just growing up with that situation.
But there was a particular law and a particular focus area that you were there to discuss.
Right.
Can you talk about that just before we go to the break?
Sure, of course. So we're trying to change the laws regarding executing people who are intellectually disabled. Because right now, a lot of the people who are on death row are intellectually disabled. Wow. So there's a moral standard that we're trying to embrace where, you know, do these people really understand exactly what's going on when they're being, you know, just in that situation.
Right.
And just trying to, like raise the consciousness of, you know, what's really going on. Is that a moral thing that we want to continue doing in Georgia? So I just wanted to talk about it because I think that it really makes people care more when they can hear a personal story. It's not just something that they're, you know, they don't see a face to the situation. So when they can hear a personal story, I think it can make more of a difference. So your face, your demeanor, your story, all of that, I think was so intentional because people may assume that being a child of a parent with a disability is different than a parent parenting a child with a disability. So basically there are services, maybe not enough, but services all the same that we can touch that are in place to help parents who are parenting a child with a disability. But the opposite does not exist. Right. So I know personally as a parent with a disability that there are no services for my own children, and there are some conditions and repercussions from that are very important. So we're going to talk more about that after the break, so you don't want to miss what's going to happen next. But let's first thank our sponsors. Connor Dental and Associates, they're the reason for these beautiful braces in my mouth and my beautiful smile. So when you visit Connor Dental, tell them you heard it from me. We'll be right back.
Connor Dental Associates, full-service dentistry, providing orthodontics, implants, laser dentistry, and general care, set in a calm and relaxing environment. Our experienced dentist and staff are here to maintain your dental health, improve your appearance and quality of life. Compassionate, professional, and informative. Ask about our core whitening system, servicing insured and non-insured patients of all ages. Located in Kennesaw, near I-75. Call today and experience the difference for yourself.
Welcome back. My name is Yvette Pegues, and I am your host for Disability Life TV. And my special guest today is Jameca McGhee. Prior to our break, and that was, of course, sponsored by Connor Dental Associates, we were talking about Jamika's dad. Now, the title of this episode is Conquering Love Behind Bars. And so some may assume that we're talking about an intimate relationship, but what can be more intimate than a relationship between her father and a daughter? You know, those two relationships at an early age are so important. So we have a lot to talk about, and I'm so grateful for Jamika, who is willing to be transparent, because I know some of you watching or someone you know is dealing or has dealt with something like this. And what you expect is to have someone who hates life, who hates men, who just hates everything, but she is the epitome of everything but that. So can we talk about how old you were? You said 2, right?
Right. I was 2 years old.
Do you mind if I ask what happened? How did he become incarcerated?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So my father was incarcerated from the time he was 16 until he was 30. And then, so he was out on parole. And he was out for 2 years. I was born in those 2 years. And then he was incarcerated from the time he was 32 until he passed away. Whoa. So he, it was a murder.
Okay.
So he was a part of it. Okay. And it was him and another guy. I won't go too much into detail of you know, exactly what happened, but so it was capital.
He was charged with capital murder.
Exactly.
So at what point did his intellectual disability come into play? Was he born with it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. So it's really interesting. I feel like it's still something new for me to grasp because I didn't learn the extent of his disabilities until he passed away.
Wow.
So when I was growing up, I knew there was something different. Like, there were a lot of things I felt like he couldn't comprehend. Oh, okay. Like, when I was really young, like, I would say first, second grade, we were so close. Oh. I mean, I felt like the level that we were on was just, he just understood me. I was really emotional and stuff. Right. And I would write him letters, like, and send him stickers, and he would send me stickers. But then as I got older, I realized he just didn't understand a lot of the things that I felt like he should understand. But I didn't really understand it until he passed away, and I like, what happened was when he passed, I got all of his things from, like, his cell, and I was being nosy. I went through, like, a lot of his paperwork and stuff.
Your history,
right, exactly. So I went through a lot of his paperwork, just stuff from his lawyers and things like that. I found out that he was in, like, special, you know, they called it special education back then, like, classes since he was in 3rd grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he was in different classes since way back then.
So did he have an actual diagnosis?
He did.
What was that?
He was intellectually disabled.
But was it caused by something? Because a lot of people that were born with, like, let's say, cerebral palsy, or in my condition, I had a traumatic experience.
Right.
Was there an onset? Was he born with it?
I'm not sure. Okay. I don't know exactly if he was born with it. I don't know about any other condition that he may have had.
Got it.
I think the way they do it, too, is, you know, the IQ test.
Yes.
So I think that he was right on that line, like, maybe right below, like, the 70 IQ, or just right at 70.
Got it.
So I think that's kind of how they determined it.
Got it. Yeah. So was it determined when he was incarcerated?
Mm-mm.
So
it was from it was
while from 3rd grade. So
exactly.
He was in special
so that's classes. One of the things that also goes with the things that we're trying to change in the courts.
Right.
Because they're saying that you have to be determined intellectually disabled before you're incarcerated, or actually before you turn 18.
Well, you know why that is, right? Mm-hmm. Because any type of disability prior to maturity is considered kind of something either you were born with and it's already in your system. And I'm so glad you made that differentiation, because a lot of people feel like, yeah, of course he went to jail and said he was crazy.
Right.
You know, and I know that's part of what happens. But you're right, because with an intellectual and cognitive disability and some of the marked disabilities, like the ones that I mentioned, there is a sense of being manipulated easily into doing things you may not otherwise do.
Exactly.
And so that would have had to come up during his trial.
Exactly.
And it didn't.
It did not.
Okay.
So that's a very good point that you make there, because with this, I also want to be sensitive, you know, to the victim.
Of course.
And to anyone who may be a victim of something like that. And it's not to excuse his crime or anything like that. And we're not saying that, you know, he shouldn't have gone to prison for what he did. It's just the moral standing of, should you execute someone?
I'm glad you got to that point.
Disabled. Exactly.
So I'm sorry for your loss.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And I know the anniversary of that loss is coming up. But what our viewers may not know is although he was scheduled for execution, that's not how you lost your dad. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Okay. So he had a stroke, and that's how he passed. So for me, I actually see it as a blessing in disguise, because I feel like I lost him like in a normal way. Right. You know, like anyone who has a dad could lose their dad to a stroke. And I feel like for me, like that gives me some sense of normalcy, because I grew up and my relationship with my dad was so weird. Like I couldn't relate to lots of people, even though a lot of people are in those situations. They don't talk about it either.
Exactly.
So you don't go to school and they're just talking about their dads being incarcerated. Like I have friends now who I know their fathers were incarcerated when we were in school together, but we didn't talk about it. Wow. You don't go to school and talk about that.
It's very taboo. And so another reason why I'm so grateful to have you on the show.
Thank you.
I think one of the things you told me that I found some irony in is that he passed away just months before his execution date.
Right.
So the execution date was actually set.
It was set.
So it was about 5 months before he was scheduled
to be
executed. For a crime described as murder, right? And also as someone with an intellectual disability. And I just want to mirror what you said. Obviously, this is not a victimless crime. Right? So his family suffered. He suffered. The family that was affected suffered. And obviously that loss was probably really heavy on him. But did he have any precondition that would have you expect that he'd have a stroke? Did he have high blood pressure? Do you think that was something a little bit more mystical than just having a stroke? Or do you think there was some stress or burden?
He was sick. I didn't know it. He kept it to himself.
Okay.
He was like that. Like he every time I went to see him, he was always happy and upbeat. Like, everyone loved him. Like, when I was little, I thought he was famous. Like, because he would come out and everybody would be happy.
Right.
So he wouldn't talk about being sick. And, of course, he wouldn't tell me. And I actually talked to him 2 weeks before he passed. Wow. And he wanted me to come down and visit in December.
Right.
And it was going to be the first time he was going to meet Mustafa.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sure you were both excited
about
about
we were excited. He already knew about him. We had already been together for a while. But it was like, let's go ahead and get the paperwork so he can come down and you can meet him. And, he sounded fine. He sounded good. But it was such a good conversation because we were still a little bit like, at that time, we were on shaky terms a little bit because as I got older, like in my early 20s, I became a little bit jaded. Of course. I started to feel like, you weren't there for me. You left my mom. And it was really hard for me to just dealing with those.
It's a lot.
Yeah, being a young adult, going through
and
things.
Puberty.
Exactly, right? So he apologized for everything. He apologized. And I had never heard him say it so earnestly. I think he had apologized like maybe once in the past or something, but I mean, just the way he did it, it was so different. Okay. So the way I look at it now, it's like I was blessed because a lot of people don't have that type of closure before they lose a loved one. So even though it's still hard, I mean, I still grieved. But I got a lot of closure, so I feel like it was a blessing also.
You seem to have conquered so much of that, though. It doesn't feel as if you have this unforgiveness in your heart for whomever. And then the compassion you have for the victims is just remarkable.
Thank you.
Because it really does color your character in a way that is just absolutely beautiful. Thank you for that.
Yes.
I'd like you to just give me a quick idea of the things you did to conquer that. I mean, was it on purpose? Did you initially say that I'm going to grow up to be someone different than I'm expected to be? Was it a decision you made?
It was. Okay. It actually was a decision that I made. I don't know. I think that I always wanted to see the brighter side of life. Wow. I think that I'm always looking for like the purpose in something instead of trying to find like or just dwell in, like, the negativity of it. Right. I'm a very spiritual person, so I'm always like, well, God wouldn't put me in this situation for no reason. Wow. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to try to find, like, the benefit of it. And the relationship that I had with my dad growing up, like, it wasn't always bad. Like, I know a lot of people, when they hear it, they're like, oh, she must have been so sad. It must have been horrible. And there definitely were times when it was really hard. Like I said, I became jaded as I got older. But when I was younger, he was my best friend. Aww. I mean, like, I love cats. And I lost one of my cats when I was 8 years old. He passed away. And my dad got one of his friends in jail to make me a stuffed cat.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so, I mean, like, really sweet things like that. Like, he was like, he would tell me, like, when I would go to school, he was like, tell your teachers about me. And if you go on a field trip, let me get the money for you. He was like, send me your report card. Let me see what your grades are like.
So he was able to parent behind bars in a way that was effective.
Yeah.
And very, very involved.
Right. And now it's so interesting because I know that he wouldn't have understood, like, maybe the curriculum. Right. You know what I mean? Right. But he still wanted to be there. Right. And that's important, whether or not you have a parent who's incarcerated or, you know, what I call being in the real world. Just to be there, like, just showing that you care about your children that way, like, that's important across the board. So I feel like in that aspect, I didn't miss out.
You didn't.
Yeah.
And he seemed to have made sure of it. Mm-hmm. So, like every show, we're going to have to close out soon. Yeah. But I really wouldn't want to close out this show about love and conquering the love that you had for and with your dad behind bars in a negative way. And I know that's not even who you are. Right. But we have something called a D-Life Diamond. And I would love for you to leave us with a statement, a belief, or just some life purpose that shines through. And that's why we call it a D-Life Diamond. Okay. Let's look at our audience here and tell them what you're thinking and what you'd like to see changed about that law. Right. Okay.
So I feel like I really have conquered love. I feel like, you know, God put me in this situation for a reason. I don't want to see it as a negative. I definitely want to be able to, even though I was hurt as a child, I want to be able to make it easier for a little girl who's going through this situation, and she can see that she can grow up and be a fashion designer or a yoga instructor. So, and I really want those laws revolving around the intellectually and developmental disabilities to change, because I just feel like, for me, morally, I don't feel comfortable with executing someone who's who has a developmental or intellectual disabilities.
So what are the exact things? Like, morally, how would they change that law? How would things have been different in a world where this law existed for you?
So, for me personally, I would love if we didn't have the death penalty. I agree. I feel like I see a lot of countries who they don't have the death penalty. They don't have capital punishment anymore. They have a lot more rehabilitation focus. Right. And I feel like it is better for everyone because, like me, when the children are involved, and then also for people who keep going to jail, it's kind of like a turn cycle. Right. It's better for them because they can actually be a productive person of society. And it just makes society better as a whole because you don't have as many criminals. You know what I mean? People are rehabilitated for what their issues may be. Right. So I would love for that to be. But just specifically what we're trying to change, though, is for them to change the preponderance of the evidence. Right. Right now, they're putting the burden on the person who's incarcerated and their lawyers, of course, and their team to prove that they are intellectually disabled. Got it. And the amount of evidence that they want is almost like unrealistic. Got it. To prove it at this point. So even Alabama's laws are different.
Wow. And even that's our neighbor, right?
Right, exactly. So even if we could just have like what Alabama's doing and make it where it's not so hard to prove it, it would be a little bit easier for what's going on in Georgia right now.
And for those of you who live in the state of Georgia or a state where capital punishment is part of your state law, I think what you've said today about conquering love behind bars is not just a personal issue. I think as a country, we need to be more compassionate. And so the title of this particular episode just is global. And I just want to thank you again for being on the show, because the relevancy and the compassion and all that you are just really came through today. And I want to thank everyone for watching. I totally love you for watching. We're going to have more information about how you can contact our guests today, and also to be able to help with some of these laws. So we love you for watching, and we'll be back on another day, another time, with another wonderful guest.